Venezuelan President Maduro is preparing to move on a disputed oil-rich region of Guyana after Venezuelans voted to claim the rights to that land. Joining us right now for how this might affect the oil markets and the rest of the energy landscape is Matt Smith. He's lead America's analyst at Kpler. Matt, let's talk through some of these things really quickly. I was shocked to hear this. I did not realize that there was this disputed territory that goes back over 100 years. There's been nothing recently, but all of a sudden now that some of the big oil companies, Exxon and now Chevron through its most recent purchase, are getting involved with this, Maduro says, hey, we want that land too.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And the vote, the referendum, was symbolic more than anything else, so it's not legally binding or anything like that. But really, it's just Maduro's trying to curry favour in the area there. The reason that we didn't really see a price response is because it's a low probability of this event actually happening. But to your point, Guyana, this wasn't an issue 10, 15, 20 years ago because Guyana wasn't producing any crude. It started in 2020, it added 200,000 barrels a day. It added another 200,000 barrels a day a year or so later. A third crude stream is coming online now, and we had the first export loading yesterday. And so you're going 200, 400, 600. They're expected to get to 1.2 million barrels a day by 2027, something like that. And so you're surpassing a Libya, an Angola, something like that.
All of a sudden, this land that I guess, Venezuela looked at as relatively useless and had kind of ceded control. By the way, this goes back over 100 years, these disputes. All of a sudden, it may be worth something. You say it's low probability, but if Maduro sent in forces, Guyana is not really in a position to be able to compete from a defense perspective.
Yeah, sure, but there's also the sanctions going on in the background as well, right? The U.S. is trying to ease sanctions on them in terms of hoping for a democratic election out of Venezuela next year, you know. So
we thought that they would. We thought that they would behave better. This isn't exactly
right. They're probably just pushing the ticket a little bit here, but still, I don't think we're going to see anything. What is interesting as well is with Brazil. So you have Brazil sort of militarizing as well, and so Brazil's in a similar situation to Guyana in that their production is at a record. We're seeing sort of 400,000 barrels a day growth out of them this year. Same probably coming through next year as well. So you've got Venezuela that. Their production is going to be increasing because of easing sanctions, but to your point, they're looking offshore, they're seeing this plethora of oil and trying to do a grab for it.
Are you shocked that WTI is below $70 a barrel this morning?
We expected prices to drop a few months ago, but we expected it into early next year. And the reason for that is because the first third of next year looks really soft. And so in terms of supply outpacing demand. And so with OPEC coming through, making cuts, we expect Saudi Arabia to keep their 1 million barrel a day production cut in place through the entire of next year, just because things are so soft. But it's been the demand side of the picture as well. So we've seen the deterioration there. At the same time, we're seeing supply growth from Guyana, from Brazil, from the US, Canada. And so it's the combination of these things that has pushed WTI to this level.
Sorry, Matt. One of the things we talked about yesterday with Liz Cheney on, but the dictator, Donald Trump, was on with Sean Hannity, former President Trump, said, no, I won't be a dictator except for day one. He said he said, close the border and drill, drill, drill. We also just recently saw that we hit peak production. We've never been this high, but we finally came back from where we were pre-pandemic.
Exactly.
And are hitting. Yeah. So price dictates activity in the oil patch. Is it possible we could go up another 10 or 20% if all regulations, not all, but if some of the ones that people complain about, when President Biden was running, he said, I will shut down the fossil industry, I don't fossil fuel industry, and Keystone, things like that. Could you remove some of the remaining regulations and go up another 10 or 20%? Are we at max?
You don't need to, Joe.
We're at max capacity.
No. In terms of economics drive everything, we're like, as you say, we're over 13 million barrels a day now in terms of
the government's not in the way at all anymore?
No, we're up probably about 1 million barrels per day on average this year versus last year. I'm not going to say we're going to grow by the same next year, but we'll grow perhaps 200,000-300,000 barrels a day, as long as the economics are dictating.
So we don't need to grease the skids at this point, so that wouldn't help.
No, not at all. And so that's why you have OPEC Plus making these production cuts, because you have so much growth coming from elsewhere in the world, including the U.S.
And when do you see the U.S. starting to taper in oil production? What year in the future?
Oh, my gosh. I think we've got a good number of years of growth
20?
yet. Maybe 10, potentially. The thing is, we're exporting that incremental barrel, right? So
Right.
we've got enough for our refineries. We still import medium sour crude. We're producing light sweet crude. As long as there is international demand for those light sweet barrels, we saw record exports last week out of the U.S. If they continue to rise, production will continue to rise.